Hey there, welcome back to the Acid Pro tutorial, or Acid Pro Next tutorial. So I realized after I had finished the last video and uploaded it that I neglected some of the key features, and I think my voice is going to hold out enough, because I've been kind of sick with the sinus thing, so haven't been able to really talk much. So this is going to be kind of short, but I neglected to mention some of the important things about manipulating things once you actually have them and want to save them. So this episode, I'm going to talk about saving and rendering and what you need to do with that. So let's get started here. So we've got our tutorial track all loaded up and ready to go, and I'm not going to play it today because we don't need to actually manipulate anything in the track itself. Just know that we've got a basic track. We're hypothetically done with it. We've composed 1 minute and 12 seconds of actual music, even though it's very simple, doesn't really do anything. If you want to hear it, you can actually listen to the last one and definitely catch what it's all about. And I would suggest starting there because it kind of defines how you would set up a track. But what I forgot to tell you is what do you do when you've got something you want to save? So you've got a track that you want to preserve. Maybe you're done with it, maybe you're not. So we need to go in here and click on save or save as, and the differentiating thing in this is that for me, if I've saved it once, I can just click save and it will save in the location that I've saved the track. So if I click here, it's saved the track. But since I save my tracks in a different directory than Acid Pro expects me to save, first time I save something, I have to actually go in and click save as, because I haven't defined the locations where I want it to save. Now I've already saved this track, so it already knows where I want to save it, and most times it actually picks the last directory you're in if you save something. So this works out pretty well for us. But let's say we're not there. Hold on. Okay. So I've got all these things on my D drive in this 2019 music directory, and these are tracks that I'm working on or have worked on and haven't finished yet, but I am still in the middle of working on them or done with them, and I just haven't moved them out. So we'll go into our tutorial track directory and we select the name so that the name down here matches what we want to call the track. You can call it anything you want, whatever sparks your interest in memory. And then the important thing is, if you have a large collection of samples like I do, you want to copy all media with the project, because otherwise you may end up looking for it. Now what I used to do is I used to back all these up, the media, the ACD file, the track, everything, to a archive of sorts. I'd put them on DVDs or whatnot, and that way I had copies of them. Prior to doing this, which is what I was doing in some of my earlier tracks, 2004, 2005, I wasn't backing up the loops or the media that went with the track. And when I had a hard drive crash, which is inevitable, you're going to have a hard drive crash someday. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I had no reference as to where those tracks and media projects were saved. So I had to go manually find every single one of them for every track that I was working on. And honestly, for some of them, it just wasn't worth it. And I lost a lot of music that was really good. And now I'm at a point where I want to upgrade or remix or redo a track that I did 10 years ago, and I don't have the media for that anymore because I didn't bother to copy it with the tracks. This is a good habit to get into, And, you know, worst case, if you never want to do anything with it again, you delete the whole directory and you're not out anything. But if you ever do want to, and if you're taking this sort of seriously, you probably will want to do something with it later, even if you don't consider that you do now. So definitely keep this box checked so that all media that you've associated, all of these tracks that we put in here, go into this folder with the ACD file so it shows up when you need it. Let me go in and I will show you what this folder actually looks like. Actually, I can just do it. No, I can't. All right, so let's go into the tutorial track. And you can see all the WAV files that I've used are right here. So if for whatever reason I want to archive this track out and dump it to DVD, I'm done with it. Like one of the tracks that I did, the Tattooed Princess. I did this a while ago. I'm done with it. I've got all my media. It was a really simple track that I put together. Did some recordings of my own that I definitely want to keep. And I can zip that directory up and dump it on DVD, and it's preserved a little bit more permanently than on a hard drive. So there's the reasoning behind that. I know it was a kind of circuitous way to get there, but I want to be as complete as possible for all levels of skill when I do these tutorials. So we're going to save it. It's going to tell me it already exists. Yes, I want to overwrite it, even though we made absolutely no changes to it. We're saving the file for a reason. All right. So now our file and all of our media is saved to a directory, and it's a very, very good idea to do this before you actually render or do anything with the project. And it's also a good idea to do this periodically as you're working on it, because if the program happens to crash or you lose power or something happens, all of your work is gone. And I've lost more tracks than I can count because of this over the last decade plus. So now the next thing we're going to do is, let's say we're done. Let's say this is a complete track here. So let's go through and let's make it into a song, because this isn't a song. This is a collection of sounds that are arranged on a screen. So now I have some choices. And I always put my tracks on in the same folder that I'm working in. It's just a habit. It's not something I'm saying you have to do, but it's a habit that I have because it makes it simpler for me to keep everything in one place. So I go to the folder that I've actually been working on the track, and I generate whatever I'm going to do as that track. Since we've already named it, it knows what it's called. We've got some different types of things we can save the track as: AIF, FLAC, MP3, W64, WAV, and WMA. Now, typically I use MP3. And the next one is your template, which in the, I don't think I can get this box any bigger, so we're going to have to scroll through it. I'll read what it says. So the description of this template says 1 minute of audio compresses to a file size of approximately 0.45 megabytes, about 22:1 compression. The audio is at 64 kilobits per second, 22050 hertz, 16-bit stereo MP3. That's what it's going to generate. That's not very good. That's FM quality audio. So now we've got 96 kilobytes near CD, 128 kilobytes CD quality, CD transparent audio at 192, 256, 320, low quality VBR, medium quality VBR, highest quality VBR. Now, I have had very poor luck actually manipulating a file beyond just rendering it as VBR. It's great if I'm going to just use the file for a specific purpose. So I'm going to give it to somebody, or I'm going to do something with it, and I do not have to manipulate that file. But I've really had bad luck using these files in projects that I have to actually go through and manipulate the file itself. It's not to say it's bad. It's just I've found that when using these in a static purpose of I need a track to sit here and be exactly what it is, VBR has always worked out fine. But in some of the applications that I plug this into afterwards, using a VBR can be a little bit detrimental to your project. So picking a constant bit rate allows you to know what you're dealing with. It allows you to have a continuous bit rate through the entire song, so you don't have to worry about it. So I usually pick 256 or 320, usually 256. So 256's compression is 5:1, which is a big difference, and the file size is 1.83 megabytes per minute. Since most of the things that we do are between 2 and 5 minutes long, that's not a huge file, so you can definitely do that. Now, this puts it at 256 kilobits, 44/100 hertz, 16-bit stereo. Now, if we take it up to 320, same thing. We only gain a little bit more here. And the trade-off that I've really found is at 256, it just seems to be a good mid-ground for me. A lot of the older stuff I did is at 128. I actually took it up to 192 in about 2008. So that was definitely it illustrates very well in some of the tracks that I have. When you listen to those and then you listen to some of the newer stuff, the clarity of the music is a lot easier to pick out. So we've got different things down here. And you're going to render the loop region only, which we didn't exceed the loop region. We didn't put anything outside of it, so that's not really a huge issue. If you had things outside that you were actually fiddling with while you were doing it, you can actually turn that on and it will measure. It only do this, and it won't render anything else. Save project markers, the media file. I always do that. It's the default. And save sections as regions with media file. I don't really worry about that too much. Save each track as a separate file. I don't ever do that because that actually gets kind of messy. So in the basic form, what we're dealing with at this level, the only thing you need to do is change the template to something higher than the base rate of 64 kilobits per second. And I'd recommend 256 or 320. And then you click save, and now it renders out the file, and I tell it to close the box when it's done because I really don't pay attention to these. The first time you do it, it may not close the box because you didn't click it quick enough to close the box, so I have to close it manually. If we do it again, it will remember that and close the box when it renders. So there you go. So now let's go over some of the options in the preferences. And some of these have to do with saving files and things of that nature. Now, I'm running in exactly the default mode, so we're going to go over some of these in some more detail. But these are the default settings, and they seem to work okay. I mean, they'll get you through the end of the day. But if you want to do something special, you have to go in here and turn on options or turn off options. And the one thing that I would not recommend is if you can help it at all and you want to use any video, you want to actually record your sound source in here, your video source in another application, and then combine them in some sort of video editor. It's much, much clearer. All right, so this is where I wanted to take you. This default project folder. Now, Acid doesn't use a tremendous amount of bandwidth going in and out of your drives. It's not like Magic's other products for video like Vegas and things like that, where it could take a significant amount of time to render things. However, this does give the option to put things when and where you want them. So this is your temporary files folder, and this tells it where to put temporary files. Now, I don't necessarily want my temporary files folder on my C drive, because if my temporary files folder fills up, and my C drive is actually very small because it's a boot drive, it's 256 meg, or 256 gig, sorry. it's 256 meg, we'd have a problem. 256 gig, and I don't want to put a lot of data on there. So the first priority I should do is move this to a different area, because anything that it's working with, if you do bring in a huge number of samples of whatever kind or do recordings, you don't want it filling up this folder and filling up your drive, because as you can see, I only have 85 gig free on this drive. It's unlikely I'm going to fill this anytime soon, but you never know. Default groove folder, same thing. You don't want it on your C drive. Loop collections folder, this is a tricky one because it's where your loops live. And those are your samples and things like that if you have a collection of them. And one thing that was brought up was, if you're new to this and you have the application or one of the versions of the application but you don't have anything to play with to go through these tutorials and whatnot, any sound files that you have will work. Or you can search for acid loops on Google and go to any of the sites, and a lot of them have free sample packs that you can download, so you can kind of demo this with those. You won't have much to actually make an actual whole song, but you'll have a drum beat maybe and a synth and whatnot, so you can build sections and parts. So that's a way to overcome that if you don't have these. Now, some versions of Acid come with packs of loops that you get with the application when you purchase it. And we're going to go over probably tomorrow, because my voice has already started, next week, not tomorrow. Next week, all the different versions of Acid and what you get with those, and all the versions that are available right now. So, and maybe we'll even touch on some of the older versions like 7 and things like that that aren't available anymore, and what they were to a basic degree. But what I want to do is I want to go through and show you what version works for you. Now that you've had some introduction to the program, and you probably shouldn't be intimidated by it, it'd probably be good if you're actually looking to purchase it to know kind of where you want to do that. Now, these things in this section right here give you the option to give a default directory for where to put project media when you save it. So if you add a MIDI track in that you made with a keyboard or the software keyboard that comes with it, you can program this directory to, or you could tell this directory, I don't think you're really programming it, but you could tell this directory where you want to put those. Again, C drive is not always optimal for these, so especially not for me, so this would be one I would want to change. In order to change it, I just browse to a directory and bam, there you go. Chop to new. So when you're chopping a file and you're editing it, so you cut the file and you want to make a new file out of that file because you edited it, you affected it, you did a bunch of stuff to it, this would be where it would save those. Again, C drive, bad news for me. Render to new and render project. So these would be the rendering, and that's where it's going to stick it. And this is basically its temporary directory. Now you can set these all for project, and that actually works pretty well. So let's just do that. And that way everything has and goes into the project folder that you're working on. Simple. Default project folder. So we want to change this, and I'll do it right now so you can see it, but you can't type in there. You can only browse to it. So let's browse to my folder. It's on the D drive in Music 2019. And there we go. And it'll use a single folder for project media saves, and we don't want to do that because if you do a lot of things, you'll end up with a ton of folders. So you don't want to do that. And I'll show you what happens when you do that. Because like we did this tutorial song last time, and it was a quick little thing I put together. But as you progress through this, you will make things that you're not really sure you want to know what to do with. And like this, let me pick one that I know I haven't done anything with. Someone I didn't even name. But this one I'm pretty sure I haven't published. So I got this track, it's real simple. It is so far 1 minute 16 seconds long. I was sitting around one day playing with the application. I found an interesting drum beat, an interesting sound, an interesting lead. Something sparked my interest to do something. And I really couldn't go anywhere with it because after I got that down, I just didn't want to forget it. So in this instance, I'm using Acid as a notepad. I'm not using it as a DAW anymore. I am actually just jotting something down. And I'll play this for you because it's hard to get a reference for anything if you don't actually hear what we're doing. But what I did is I found something in this that I wanted to do. And I built this and then couldn't go anywhere with it because inspiration had left me. But I didn't want to lose it. So I saved this. If I'd have been saving these all in the same directory, I would have a mess. So, but, you know, bass line kind of got me thinking this might be interesting. And then it goes into this next part, which to me was kind of different, interesting. It needs something over it. Thing about this is that as a rough track that I put together, the beats aren't on map, they aren't on key. This needs to be cleaned up. There needs to be a lead over it. There needs to be more detail in it. There needs to be effects done on this. I just wasn't there. I got this, and that was something that got me through to here, and then I never went any further with it. I don't remember if I published this one or not. I don't think I did. Let me find something a little more complicated, because these are all just notes that I've been working on. Like this one. And remember when I said loop area? I got this out here because I thought it was interesting. And we can play it. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. I just wanted to keep it. So I threw it outside the loop area. So if I was rendering this, I would tell it to render the loop area like we discussed before, because it would leave this out. But this basic track hasn't had any editing done. It's only 3-4 parts. I was just trying to get some interesting sounds down and a drum beat. And there's your drum beat. There's your interesting sound. That seemed to fit pretty well. Never got back to this. And I did these a while ago. So here's another one. This one's a little more complicated. Did I do this one? I don't remember if I published this. This one is 1 minute 12 seconds. It's a little short to be published. But you could see some of the fading and some of the volume pulls that I put in here. And another one. Got a little bit into it. So I got here and never figured out what I wanted to put on top of it. So again, Acid as a notepad. So we've got options to save files. Since files aren't very big right now and hard drives are huge, generally you can do something like this. If you've got an idea, a concept, you hear something you want to try to reproduce in your own way, something you think you can do better, don't hesitate to pull this program out, pull out Soft Synth, pull out something, put that down, and try to manipulate that in your own fashion and make your own thing out of it. If you don't finish it, well, you got a foundation to come back to later. And I've revisited some of these a couple of times, and just the inspiration isn't there to finish the track, but it has given me insight at times to go do something else, because something I can't figure out how this track needs to sound to get through it. I can't figure out how the sound needs to go to take it to the next step. But in trying to do that, I found different things that appealed to me that I wanted to take a different way in something else. So inspiration can come in interesting ways, especially with this application. It's a limitless amount of things you can throw in here. It's not like a piece of paper. Save it. Start a new track. Bam. There you go. And then you go down here and you pick a new section to go through. And you throw something out there. And there you go. Inspiration is hit. And now you're ready to move along and do this song, because the other song got you going in a direction that you thought something else needed to go. Now you end up with 2 songs. So better for you. So I know this one was pretty simple, and a lot of people understand these concepts already, but I really want to make sure I touch on every level of this that I possibly can, and I don't want to have anybody feel left out as to what things are doing and why they're doing them, and maybe why you need to pick some of these options. So I definitely welcome any of the questions that you might have, and we're going to get back into the actual application in 2 weeks. Next week, like I said, we're going to go over the different versions. So if that's not something you need to look into, you might want to come back, but I made a playlist for these, so it should pick them up, and it should be pretty easy for you to see. Again, I try to keep these down about a half an hour, because any more than that, you're just not learning anything anymore. But practical knowledge of using the application is going to get you further than anything. Reading books, watching any videos, whatnot. Videos will give you tricks, but you got to figure out your own way. If you make your songs the same way I make my songs, then we didn't move anything forward. But if you can take what I teach you and take it in a different direction, then that's innovation, and that's something that you did yourself. So just always keep that in mind and keep on making music. And as I said, we're going to get more technical in 2 weeks, and we're going to start picking up things like what this section is for and what this section is for. And then we're going to go into doing effects and whatnot. We're not going to do all that next week. But we're going to talk about keys, and we're going to talk about time signatures and tempos and things like that, and what works well, and then how to change them in the middle of the song, which a lot of people never figure out how to do. It was something that I actually had to figure out myself, because I challenged myself to make a song that progressed from a very slow tempo to a very fast tempo, just so I could see progression of tempo through the song and key changes. So every little challenge you can give yourself helps you learn. And again, keeping this under 30 minutes as best as I can. Sorry about my voice. Hopefully next week it's better, and hopefully I can record some more, but it's kind of scratchy right now. So we're also going to do some recording, and I'll plug in some of my synths, and we'll play around with those and capture some of that stuff in here and make our own loops. And that will be a very cool day for everybody when I can show you how to make your own sounds and incorporate them into your tracks. That's when you start actually doing things, and you don't need to put a lot of money into it. You really don't. So you can get a good controller for about 40 bucks. And that'll take you further than anything is going to take you. So until next time, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the playlist if you want to catch these. I know I do a lot of weird stuff on this channel, but I'm going to try to do these every Tuesday. So you can kind of keep an eye out for them. And like I said, next week is going to be covering the versions of the application, because that's kind of important, so you don't waste your money. And the week after that, we're going to get back into the technical aspects of it. So I'll see you guys then. Thank you for checking it out.